it's Wendy K. Laidlaw here, and as always, I do hope that this message finds you well today. Now, as always, you know, if you've been listening to me for a while, sharing the success stories, the EndoBoss success stories, is just a joy. I can't quite find the exact words how to express not only where women have come from, but where they are now. And I'll try to do my best to do that, if only just to inspire you as to where you are on your own EndoBoss journey. I mean, almost every day, if not every second day, we receive emails from women, just even from the book, you know, the successes that they've had. We had a lady recently, and I'm hoping she's going to come on to the podcast, who shared on Instagram that every month she used to have to go into A&E, accident and emergency at the hospital, to get connected to a drip which had medication on it, painkillers and anti-inflammatories to try and help her with the pain that she was suffering. She was in that much pain. She had to go to hospital every month. Now she has been able to put that into remission. Obviously, she said it wasn't easy. It's challenging. And I say that so that you're aware of that. If you're the sort of woman that's even listening to this, watching this, then I know you've got everything it takes to put this condition in remission. But this lady, as I say, I hope she's going to come on and share her own journey in her own words, because it's so inspiring what is possible. Again, we don't know what we don't know, and why it's very important to get in the know. But today we're here to talk about the beautiful Leonie from Switzerland. Again, so amazing when we get the opportunity to work with younger women, or women of all ages, but in particular younger women, because they are really bypassing decades of pain and suffering. And I think what's particularly exciting for me is Leonie is just 21 years old. She had that fabulous spirit that was able to question what she was being told, listening to her instincts, and then reaching out, stepping out, and taking back power and control of her body. So what I'm going to do, as I normally do, is kind of read out just some of her symptoms that she was suffering from when she reached out to me. This was last year now. This was April last year. She had irregular bleeding 6 to 9 days. In fact, sometimes it was 10 to 13 days bleeding, spotting, blood clots, ovulation pain, nipple pain, lower back pain, ovary pain, pain with bowel movements every day. Sometimes there was constipation, sometimes diarrhea, weepiness, depression, bloating, distended stomach, that dragging sensation down the legs, ovarian cysts, etc. She also had a stinging uterus and a lot of pressure on her bladder. And she writes down here that her average daily pain scores at this time were 5 to 7 pain every single day. She said it was throbbing, kind of like lightning sometimes. She also had lots of allergies, yeast infections, and anxiety that she suffered from as well. Now, obviously, for someone so young to be suffering so much, it was really hard on her. And as I say, I really admire that she reached out to us to start working with her and really help turn her life around. She obviously mentioned that many areas of her life were super stressful, as you can imagine. Her work life, she was supposed to obviously be spending a gap year away, but obviously with her pains, she was never able to do that. She had challenges with her family situation, with strained relationships with some family members. And, you know, having to fight her pain, anxiety, and depression every day was, you know, particularly challenging. Now, this was at the very beginning when she started. Now, as you know, it takes at least, you know, 6, 9, if not sometimes 12 months to really identify the root causes of endometriosis, adenomyosis, cysts, fibroids, etc. So again, I'm sharing this with you so you have the right energy when you're approaching this. I think we're all guilty of this quick fix mentality, and of course, if only things were that simple, unfortunately they're not. So again, you know, I think it's so important for you to recognize that when you start this journey, it is really important to understand that it takes time to put this condition in remission. So we're talking with Leonie here at the end of the advanced program, which was 6 months down the line. Her pain scores, which were anywhere between 5 and 7 every day, had gone down to a pain score occasionally of 2. She had less brain fog. She'd hugely improved bowel movements almost every day, which is, if you think about it, is essential for your health. Bowel movements are the waste product from the foods that you eat. And if you're not having regular bowel movements, you're not removing the waste from your body. And sometimes, you know, the toxins from the waste that's being stored, whether it's constipation, can also cause all sorts of exhaustion and fatigue and things as well. So again, there was major improvements. Again, as you know, this is an emotional journey. We address what we call the 5 Ps, or the 5 poisons, which are produce, which is food, products, property, people, and past. And normally the first 3, and I say this kind of tentatively, are the easiest. The products, the produce, products, and property are fairly straightforward, even though there is obviously some attachments to different things as you're moving through the program, or addressing where your pain is at. But it tends to be the people and past which can be particularly challenging. And that's where the Academy, we do our most significant work. As part of the Academy, there's weekly group Q&A calls. There's also one-to-one coaching, private coaching calls as well as all the information education. By the end of the 6 months, Leonie was saying she allows emotions to pop up now. She doesn't class any emotions as good or as bad. She's kinder to herself. She says, I'm slowly beginning to become friends with myself. I listen to my body rather than becoming anxious about the symptoms. I know how to listen to it, how to search for what were the triggers. She's showing up for herself now. She knows how to put in boundaries. She knows how to listen to her various parts of herself. She's using her voice. She's a lot more confident. She doesn't let people treat her unfairly or unjustly. She sets boundaries when something gets too overwhelming, and she actually considers herself first. She steps away or reduces engagement with people who drain her energy and cause her any emotional or physical pain. Because remember, all these things are connected. And it's a challenge when you start out on this journey to recognize the connection between the emotional and the physical. And I think, again, in a lot of cultures and a lot of countries around the world, there's this feeling that, you know, you switch off and numb out from your emotions, and then in turn, your body starts to scream. And then you put a lot of energy into trying to switch off and ignore your physical signs and symptoms. And this is where the journey is learning how to listen to your emotions, embrace your emotions, unblock any emotional blocks, and then of course learn how to read the signs and symptoms of what's showing up inside your body, because your body's always wanting to talk to you. She says she still finds it hard sometimes, you know, she sometimes feels a bit sad and has grief about her life, but of course this is okay, because you know, there was many years where her life was affected because, you know, she wasn't able to tune into her instincts, didn't know how to do that, to understand the power that she had, but now she does. She's gained back daily structure in her life because she'd lost a lot of that due to her health before. She said the most surprising element of the program was how much it is about emotions and spirit and energy. That all along, also during the changing or the diet and the lifestyle and the products, the emotional component was always talked about and considered as well. And there are so many aspects that affect endometriosis and the pelvic pain. She was also surprised that there are others, so many women suffering from exactly the same symptoms, and how you can identify what these signs and symptoms are and the power you have over them. She said what she loved most about the EndoBoss Academy was the constant, kind, and patient support, which of course is key to every woman. I'm sure if I'm speaking to you now, you are the type of woman that really cares, over cares for people in your environment, and you know, you love doing that. But also part of the learning and the journey to healing is learning how to accept that back from your to yourself from the support that we offer. She loved the one-to-one calls with my head coach Maxine and the occasional bonus calls with me. The email support that she has, of course, is second to none. We refer to it as VIP extreme email support. You don't get copy and paste answers, you get personalized responses from my team who are fully trained. We have meetings every morning to discuss, you know, how are our clients, how are they coming through, what obstacles are they facing, and how we best can support them. She loved the fact that, you know, my team and Maxine were believing mirrors when she's having a bad day, loved the group calls, and loved how the information, the education was drip fed, and the gentle, positive encouragement. Because as I've mentioned, this is not an easy journey, but I know if you're listening to this, you have everything it takes to make the journey and get to the other side. She loved sharing she liked her bonus calls, the stories that were shared, the inspiration about other people. She recognized that just, you know, how much connection she had to her body that she never knew that she had before. And she says, you know, what would you say to any woman considering the EndoBoss program? She said, if you're willing and ready to make permanent lifestyle changes, do it. It opens you up totally to new ways of viewing your body, your life, your relationships, food and products, the medical field and society in general. She said that key things that she'll take away from this experience is phrases like the body is always wanting to heal and rebalance itself. And most importantly, slow is fast. Obviously the 5 Ps, which is the 5 poisons, and how they can cause, you know, like the last straw that breaks the camel's back. Little by little, little becomes a lot. And that works from the negative perspective as well as the positive. If you've got a combination of different factors that are causing pain and inflammation, from the produce to the product to the property, let alone the people in the past, then your body will start to kind of shout out and scream at you. And then, of course, she loved the reinforcement of the 3 daily basics, which is the journaling, meditation, and power shake as well. So Leonie is, you know, still on her journey. There is still a couple of bits and pieces that she still needs to pay attention to. But personally, to have seen the transformation that I have in her, you know, from the very first time I spoke to her, the stepping into her confidence, learning to connect to herself in this whole new way has been beautiful and transformational. So I hope you enjoy listening to the interview with Leonie. She is such a beautiful soul, and what a joy to be able to meet and engage and help inspire someone at this young age, so that she doesn't have to go through 33 years like I did, and decades like other women have as well. Now, I've got more exciting success stories coming through as well. So again, you know, if you're looking for this inspiration, it's coming your way. We have many women who have totally transformed their bodies around. If you're listening to this and you've made some progress, and you're getting frustrated, remember to keep going back to the book. You're probably missing something, you know, and just know that you have this part of your body, and we look forward to speaking to you soon. But until then, as always, to your health. Enjoy this listening to Leonie share her journey. Hey everyone, it's Wendy K. Laidlaw here. And as always, I do hope that this podcast finds you well, or if you're watching this on YouTube, that you find yourself well on YouTube. Now, I have to say that when I do these interviews, the success stories interviews, I do feel emotional. There's no doubt about it. I feel it in my throat, because I think what's really hard to convey to the listener or to whoever's watching this video is where the women were when they started. And it's hard to convey that really in words and things. But I'm so pleased that Leonie from Switzerland has agreed to come on and share her EndoBoss story thus far. Hi, Leonie, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. You look amazing. You look gorgeous as always. You look glowing.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much. It means a lot to me and the community and the team for you, because I know it's a nerve-wracking thing, so I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
You're agreeing. And I think, you know, we'd asked, you know, you to kind of go back and read through your journals, because isn't it amazing how much you forget? But I wonder if you would be kind enough just to kind of relay to the audience, kind of, can you remember back to like just over a year ago what was happening in your body and in your emotions and in your life then?
Yeah, well, I was in a quite dark space. It was really tough, and I had no idea what was going on with my body. I had no relationship with my body, and I was starting to get, you know, pain every day. So that was really very confusing. And then I started having ovarian cysts as well, which, kind of made me very depressed and down. And I kept getting them repeatedly. And like many women, of course, we search for a doctor and we see our GP and our gynecologist. And I told her that I was suffering and that I was in pain, and she told me that my only option to prevent those cysts from coming was birth control, which I kind of always had this kind of gut feeling, but I never knew kind of how to listen to it, or that it was okay to listen to it in the first place.
Yeah.
And I refused because I'd been on birth control when I was about 17 years old already for my periods.
Yeah.
And didn't agree well with me, which I think is something many women will be able to relate to.
Yeah.
And I was put on the patch, the hormonal patch, which just made my periods even more irregular and much heavier. And that was just, I've always sensed that my body was quite sensitive to what I put on it, what I ate, and kind of, yeah, I just always kind of had that gut feeling.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think my problems kind of started earlier on, kind of when I was 16, 17 years old, and I'm 21 years old now. But my pain definitely got worse with the cysts, and that's when I was about 19 years old. Yeah, so that was where I was.
Yeah. And I remember when you kind of reached out, you know, you had this real drive, this real determination, this real, it's funny you saying that you didn't really know how to listen to your body before, but you knew it was sensitive. So you did have that level of wisdom.
Yes, exactly. But kind of how I was brought up, I have lots of family members that work in the medical field. So I was brought up to believe if something's wrong with you, you trust the stranger in a white coat, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of just how I grew up with those values. And then when my pain got worse and worse, I started getting pain on ovulation. My periods started being longer. I had spotting for about 9 or 10 days a month. And I just knew something was off, kind of something, my hormones at least, and even more things were just not in balance. And then I went to see doctor after doctor. And I think that's something many women can relate to. And I had tons of scans, of examinations, and they looked at me, and there was just every doctor after doctor said there's nothing wrong with me. So that was kind of put me off about trusting my own body, kind of, because I knew I was in pain, but everybody said it's kind of all in my head. And there was one gynecologist and I had an insight into her notes, and she'd written down that I needed therapy, kind of because of my pain, and that I should see a psychological doctor. And so that kind of drove me more and more away from my body and my kind of feelings towards it. And I'd never really had a good relationship with my body, because I had always been I was always a very worried child, a very anxious child, and had to be picked up from school a lot because I wasn't feeling well, and kind of I've always had that very sensitive side with me, and I used to believe that was a weakness.
Yes.
So that's how it went. And time went by, and I just wasn't getting better. And so I kind of started doing my own research, and I went to another doctor. I went to 7 doctors in total, and they all told me there's nothing wrong. And with the last doctor, I proposed to him that I think I might have endometriosis. And then he said, well, according to my symptoms, that may be, and the only thing he could do for me was birth control or surgery, and both wasn't an option for me. So I started searching for other options, and I ordered a bunch of books, and one of them was yours.
Amazing. Well, I admire your determination after speaking to all these people, you know, and being kind of, especially when you said, like, somebody said that you should go and see a psychiatrist or a psychologist on your head. I mean, when you hear yourself saying that now, I mean, oh my goodness.
I can feel it kind of physically. So yeah, that was kind of heartbreaking, because that was just kind of the final stop where I said, okay, just nobody believes me, and this is where I am. And that I felt like I was at a deadlock, actually.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, isn't it? Because not only do you have the pain and symptoms, so you're fighting that, but then you're fighting this narrative, which is, well, can't find anything, so it must all be in your head. I mean, this is, I've kind of semi-joked about this, and it's not funny, but it's like, do you genuinely think that when I was a little girl, I wanted, this was my aspiration to be in pain? Like, you can't make you can't make the physical symptoms up, you know, when you're squatting and things. That isn't in your head. I mean, it's astounding, isn't it?
Yeah, and you kind of, you feel so alone, and that's what kind of, when I joined your program, that was kind of like I was being kind of supported and caught up whilst falling. So
yeah. Oh, but that's a really lovely way of putting it. Exactly, because you know that we know what you're going through, and you know, and supporting you to step into your own power. Because I mean, it's really nice hearing you say that you can instinctively knew, because obviously you're fighting all this narrative, which is, by the way, Leonie, it's all in your head, it's not real. And you're, it's so shocking, isn't it, to your system? You're like, no, this is real. Would you like it, like a piece of this? Because like this is so real. And then at the same time, you're scrabbling around trying to get answers and trying to kind of make sense of what's happening, so that you can do something about it, so that you can get out of the pain.
And I remember when my pain got worse, that I always had this, I mean, we talk about the parts in the program, and I already then had that kind of motherly part in me that knew that I was not supposed to be in pain, but I had no idea how to start or what to do. And your book was a blessing, and I read it in about 2 days. And I remember going through the book and saying, that I know that feeling, and I can relate to that, and that's happened to me as well. And nobody kind of, I never related to anybody kind of people around me, so that was a blessing.
Oh, I'm so glad. I know when you suddenly read something or you can relate to something, you're like, oh my God, it's not in my head. Like this. And sometimes on my journey, I wasn't able to put into words. Sometimes I wasn't able to find the words or to figure out what was happening, which is why the journaling is so important, because you're able to kind of find the words. But I'm so pleased that book, you know, at least kind of like, oh my goodness, it's not me. I'm not going crazy.
Yes, exactly. That was kind of got me at the right moment, I think.
Yeah, but full credit to yourself. And this is really important, as you know, to give yourself credit, because you know, because you're 21 years old now, and whilst you started the pain at 16, 17, which was so young, and that's been a good, 4 or 5 years. You know, and obviously things escalated when you were 19. How amazing is it that at 21, you know your body now, like you understand your body, you know, you put these things into remission because you understand like what's happening inside your body. You know, you have this relationship now.
And I think it's kind of like you say, kind of the emotional thing kind of comes first, and it has to come first before your body can catch up, kind of. And I know that my body still got a lot of kind of a way to go, but emotionally I've made huge improvements, and I know that, you know, if I keep the momentum going, that my body will catch up.
And it's a really good point that you make, because the program, the academy, the EndoBoss Academy, is all about developing this relationship with yourself. And at the same time, we have to appeal to those parts that are like, okay, practical food, produce, etc. But of course, the emotion, and that, to be honest, that's the easy stuff to focus on, because that doesn't take much going down deep and self-reflection and connection, which we all fear on some level. And that's where obviously, I mean, you were a duck to water, I have to say. You were an amazing student, because you really kind of were open to it. You didn't fight it. I think you had a very strong intuition to kind of know, oh, this kind of makes sense.
And I remember reaching out to you, and kind of, I think I wrote kind of an essay to apply for your program. And I remember I wrote it while I was in the train, and I was really kind of really invested, and I really, really wanted to join. I knew I needed to change my life, and I wanted to definitely change, and I knew it was required for my body, because I knew that I had lots of work to do on my past and on my also current life, because I wasn't living very healthily, and I had no idea what self-care was. I had no idea what a boundary was. So that was a blessing. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just hearing you talk, I remember when you applied and we spoke, and I just loved your like strength and determination. And that's it. You can have all this, you know, kind of like, I just want to get well, but it's like, where do you start? How do you do it? And you know, and then it's navigating the sad days, bad days, down days, flare days, want to give up days, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, in amongst making the necessary changes that need to be made.
Yeah, exactly. And I must say that hadn't I had your program and, you know, all you rooting for me, I think the down days would have been much harder to deal with. And I have so many quotes of yours kind of that were ingrained kind of in my mind. So that really kept me going. That was really awesome. And it still is.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I know, I think you were fantastic. I think because a couple of times I think you'd gone to the doctors and been so triggered and so upset. I think when you started the program, you just went back, and again, that's natural to kind of, because we're all conditioned, and I think your family, you know, are doctors and things as well. So deeply ingrained. But as a society, we're ingrained. You got something wrong with your body, you go to the doctor, which is fine. But equally, I think what was fantastic myself is you're going to a stranger in a white coat. You were able to listen to yourself and go, and sometimes the options that are offered are more frightening than actually what's going on inside your body. You know, you're like, no, I don't want you mucking around with robotic arms inside my abdomen. Thanks very much. You know, my mom used to say, doctors bury their mistakes. And I just feel like, oh my God. But yes, I think it's interesting. And obviously, disclaimer, not all doctors bury their mistakes. I'm just kind of being a bit facetious when I say that, but I think it is interesting, you know, how you trusted your instincts and you kept moving forward. And even, as I say, in the program, you did get really emotionally triggered and by one of the doctors, because he frightened you. I don't know if you remember that.
I do, yeah. And that's kind of something I'm working through as well in my journal, kind of all those, I mean, it sounds quite small, those doctor's visits, but I think many women can relate that they can be really traumatizing as well, especially if you hear your options. And I think looking back at it now, I think it's good that I got scared, kind of, because it made me look for other options. And I always had that inner wisdom saying, I'm not supposed to be in pain and I deserve not to be in pain. And where do we go now?
I know, it's really interesting hearing you say that. Like, I'm glad I got scared, because I think that was the same with myself. I was just like, this is so scary. I can only see the coffin as my next step down here. I've been doing everything I was told to do. So there has to be another way. And you're right, it is so traumatizing. And I don't use that word lightly. But if you think realistically, you go and see a strange man. And you're lying on a table, and even if they do an internal, oh my God, like it's horrifying. You know, it's traumatic. And I've heard all sorts of stories of women being mistreated either verbally or, you know, physically during these kind of very personal, invasive kind of situations, whether it's intended or not. If you've got a man doing it, you know, and I know some women have experienced some women doctors being a bit dismissive too, but at the same time, it's such an invasive area of the body to be even talking about. So embarrassing, isn't it? You know?
And I remember exactly kind of being kind of scared but hopeful before every doctor's visit, because I thought, you know, this is the one that's going to help me, but he or she didn't. And I as well had kind of the woman that prescribed me therapy for my pain, because she said it was all in my head. She was a woman as well. And I remember the last doctor I went to was a man as well. And I remember telling him kind of the pain I was in, and that I was experiencing pain on ovulation. And kind of he was writing things down, and I just he just drifted off while I was talking to him, and he didn't write the things down. And so yeah, that was really, and it's a vulnerable topic anyways, going to the gynecologist. So yeah, if you're not being taken seriously after 7 or 8 doctors, I just felt at a dead end. Yeah,
I know, and as you're talking, I'm thinking back to like Victorian times when or I think it was before, where they used to diagnose women with hysteria as a medical condition.
Yeah.
Is it any wonder? Like, no, but you're telling me all these physical things are in my head.
Yeah.
It's psychosomatic, like I'm making it up. No, I know there was times myself, I'm like, don't you dare make out that this is not my dream. This is not my inspiration.
Exactly.
Me. Like, it's not like I'm lying, in bed as a victim going, oh, poor me. I actually want to learn and get my body well. So, and that's what I really admired about your spirit.
Thank you. Yeah. And I when I was about 15 years old, I'd gotten anxiety medication prescribed because I was dealing with a lot of nervosity and anxiety and worry, and I mean, I've always had that drive kind of not to be on the medical kind of machine. And the gynecologist kind of told me to take those medications again. And that's also something, luckily, I refused.
And how demeaning. I can almost feel like my chest as you're talking, like, there you are, like, somebody help me, somebody help me, somebody help me. And you're being kind of like the back of their hand, they're just sweeping you kind of like, we all know it's in your head, dear. You can hear it, can't you?
Rings a bell.
And when you think back to that time and those parts of you being like, what comes up for you?
I think kind of, we talk about the child part a lot, and I think it's kind of just that evasive child part, just, okay, you have to listen to this stranger in a white coat, and that's just how it is, and you're just stuck kind of. And I hadn't had my parent part developed at all at that time, or just a very small part, because I did know, I wanted to do it differently. So it was very triggering that time.
I mean, it's such a shame, isn't it, that and I know I've met some fantastic doctors on the pathway who questioned their training and who cared enough to be curious enough to expand on their training, to go, and even just to make the assumption that this person keeps coming to me saying, help me. So there must be something there that, okay, I might not have been trained in this, but I care enough to read more. And I used to be so inspired by those types of people. And I think, it's funny because it's Endometriosis Awareness Month this month, and I've been doing radio interviews and stuff about it. And it's interesting because I can hear even the interviewers who are women so far, because I said, you really don't want me to speak to men. I spoke to men 2 years ago, and I could imagine them going back to the wives going, I had to talk about periods today, as in, like, that their career, they feel that the bottom of their career having to talk about women's troubles. But I could even hear, some of the women kind of going, really? Is this possible? I mean, but you just have to learn to live with it. How do you learn to live with it? I said, oh, no. Just to be clear, like, it's in remission. I have no symptoms, no nothing, like nothing, de nada, diddly squat. And you just hear them kind of going, as if almost pat me on the head and go, yes, I think you think that, dear, but it's not real, And it's interesting, isn't it? But why would people be like that? I would be like, oh my God, tell me, like, what do I need to do?
And that's how I was. And I kind of felt alone, kind of going on this journey by myself, because I think most people are just, conditioned to just go to the doctor and have it resolved, and that just did not work for me at all.
And it's women like yourself that I love, and that I'm, this is why I do what I do, because when I first started out, I was trying to convince those that were not interested in looking for another way. And again, even with these interviews, I can feel that I'm like, you're probably not the sort of person that's going to be drawn to me because you're happy with where you're at, and that's fine. But those women that are listening to this podcast, which has just had over 100,000 downloads actually yesterday, which is amazing. you are speaking to women who have been in your situation, who've been in my situation, who are in currently, where you've been, and kind of going, oh my goodness, is this possible?
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of, the doctors, kind of that search for a different way, I think what got me through were your podcasts where you speak to those doctors. That was really helpful, and that was kind of gave me kind of the final. I think I listened to some podcasts before I applied for a program, and hearing doctors speak so differently to the ones I'd met before here where I live, that was really kind of, okay, I believe there's a different way, and that's why your podcasts are so valuable.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, because I think it was Dr. Tony Coop that I'd spoken to.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him really early on in my journey, and he was so lovely, and he was British and had expanded his, I think he's been in the medical realm for about 60 years or something, and he's so lovely. And he said he got sick to death of just going down the same narrative and wanted to explore. He was one of the ones that wanted to explore. But I remember exactly where I was sat when he said to me, so why do you think it is if you have 4 sisters in a family that only one gets endometriosis?
Yes.
And that kind of was like, oh yes. And I'd already kind of started going, well, what's going on? If my finger can heal, how come my insides aren't healing? And it just started this journey. And I think that's what with yourself and your journey, I just felt like there was something that just kind of clicked into place.
Yeah.
The moment you started.
Yes.
Like this aligned with you, this resonated with you.
Yes.
Because it's common sense, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I just knew that kind of that book, the green and white book, that was just my safe place. And I'm not quite sure. I think I found your program on the website, and I remember being so determined to get in. I felt so lucky, kind of. Yeah.
Well, that's right. Not everyone that applies gets in because of the level of support and work, and love and attention that you deserve. Because like you say, when you were coming in, so many people being mistreated and treated, just so mistreated. And I could say worse. And I don't talk about that side of the endometriosis thing because I just want to focus on what's working, give women hope. And in fact, we've got our success stories book coming out soon. You can see it's all blurry. Volume 1. So you'll be in volume 2 because, oh my goodness, it's taken so long to pull together. But again, I want, like that green book of endometriosis, I want the success stories so that women can read. So yours will be one of them in the next volume, that women can take the book to bed and hold it to their chest and go, oh, I relate to her, and I relate to her, and oh my goodness, look what happened at the end.
That was, I think I listened to just about every woman that was on your podcast, and I loved every single one of them.
And did you find you related to them and their stories?
Yeah, totally. And not just kind of the current situation, also lots of women talk about their past and about their childhoods, and I don't know, I just always felt like my story was just kind of not normal, and how I was as a little child was not normal. And then I heard women speaking about, being very sensitive child, or very, very worried, and I think I just related to that, and that I've never kind of met a community like yours.
Oh, it's giving me goosebumps down my arm saying that. I'm so glad. I think that's it. I think there, not every woman with endometriosis is that, so I'm not going to generalize, but I think a vast majority of women, especially the women that are going to be listening to this podcast, probably try and run away from their sensitivity, numb from it, detach from it, disassociate from it, because it's been like no one's taught them how to protect themselves. And I've had a couple of examples over the past couple of days where, oh my goodness, I've had to really protect myself and put a firm boundary in with two other women who are quite separate. And I'm like, oh, ow, saucer of milk for table 4, it kind of like, just so catty, and, and just kind of like, but I wasn't taught that before. So before, the sensitivity would have, like a sponge, absorbed all their whatever was going on for them. Because as we know, we're powerless over people, places, and things, but we're powerful over ourselves to go, I'm going to remove myself from this person. I'm going to detach myself. So what was that like to kind of learn how to put boundaries in?
It was totally new. and I just about knew what the word meant.
Yes.
But I never knew that I was allowed to put in boundaries. And I think I had kind of that program in my head, kind of that putting in a boundary meant I was weak and I was not, strong enough to endure certain things. And yeah, and kind of step by step, it didn't always work as perfectly as, my perfectionist part kind of wanted it to, but more and more, and now I'm feel really confident with setting boundaries. It just, yeah, worked better and better. And Maxine's coachings helped in very, really well. And yeah, it soothes you to know, I'm allowed to say no, and I'm allowed to step back, or, change my mind. And it's, funnily enough, it's made me kind of understand other people's boundaries better, because I used to get upset when people, kind of said no, and I thought, it was my mistake, and it's kind of had an all-around effect. So that's been lovely.
I know, and it's so interesting hearing you say, I thought it was a sign of weakness to put a boundary in, because again, because we end up being and becoming what we've learned or what we've watched. And it's not taught. This is not taught, is it? It's more of a learned thing. So we watch our parents, or we watch our friends, or we watch stupid films or TV and try and learn how to engage with relationships from fantasy. And nobody teaches us that actually, no, we don't have to put up with mistreatment or abuse or whatever. Like I was saying earlier, in the past couple of days, I could feel it. And in the past, these people would have drawn me into a drama triangle. Persecutor, victim, rescuer kind of thing. But I just actually took myself out of it and said, I'm not going to engage. Go and do, have fun with yourself, because I'm just not going to engage. And it's so freeing. And I think in the past, like yourself, I would have thought it was a sign of weakness to remove myself, but it's actually, as you know, a sign of strength, because it's them and their stuff, and they're allowed to have their stuff. But we don't have to carry their stuff or absorb their stuff. And I think that's the difference. I noticed that with you on your journey. Several relationships changed for you quite significantly, didn't they, in a positive way?
Yes, they did. And I think, it's an ongoing process, kind of, that I've noticed that kind of in this year, that I noticed when I need to put in a boundary, because I know that, the effect it has on my body if I let myself, be pushed around by other people. And I know that, causes disharmony and disbalance in my body. And it's had an effect on my relationships, but that's okay. And I've, learned how to journal through it and meditate through it. So
and that's so powerful, isn't it? And I love hearing you say, because we're all the same. I don't like conflict or drama. I just like plod away and get on with my own life. And then suddenly these things pop up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to have to deal with this, and whatever. And then you think, I think we talked about this before. It's like, you go, I either ignore it, and they're still going to carry on, or I put a boundary in and at least protect myself, and because sometimes you can't avoid these things, but now we show up to take care of ourselves, from people that I refer to as toxic, because toxic people have their own agenda and they don't care about us. They just want to trample all over you, and they go, oh, poor me. I go, well, I'm sorry about poor you, but that doesn't work for me. And I think that's what I really noticed with you, was you were aware of other people and their needs and their desires and their requests. And you were equally acknowledging to yourself, oh, it's okay for me to have my needs and requests too. And we're the type of people that try and meet in the middle, but you sometimes can't meet in the middle with toxic people. They're like, I want you to do this. And you're going, and that's when you step back. And I noticed that it got easier and easier with you, the more support and the more that you felt, and it felt good in your body, because your body, when I had these situations, I could feel my chest get tight. I could feel it, and I could feel their pushing, and I could feel their buffaloing, and I could feel their bullying. And then I just literally put the hand up and said, I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
and I removed myself. And that takes more strength than getting caught up in these dramas.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so easy to get involved with toxic people because they kind of draw you in.
They do, don't they?
Yeah, and I never realized the effect that people can have, you know, on not only on your psyche, how, you know, many people, I think that's easy to believe, but not on your body, and it causes disharmony. And yeah, it was easy for me, you know, it made sense for me to, you know, make a couple changes to my diet and, you know, my products and everything. But when it got to the emotional part and the people part, there was a lot of resistance kind of in understanding and believing, you know, what effect it can have. And it's, you know, it's a process you go through.
It is. And I think hearing you say that is completely natural, because as a part of us, it's almost like when we realize, it's like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz, she gets up and she pushes, Toto pulls the curtain back, and it's just a little man. But, you know, we don't want to see people for how they really are. We have in our heads how we want them to be. And then when you hear yourself go, but if they just change, you know, and then as soon as you hear yourself say that, you go, no, you have to see them for how they are. And that's what's resistance, because it's sad. It's almost like a grieving. Seeing someone how they are, not how you want them to be.
Exactly.
And you hear my voice go, how they actually
are. Kind of slumped.
Because it's sad, isn't it? You know? But that's where, when you connect with all your different parts, supportive parts, through your support systems, really kind of like tune in and know that, you know, you can handle this.
And I think the toughest part for me was to apply, you know, that knowledge to people that were close to me, certain family members. I'm sure many listeners can relate, kind of that, you want close people with you maybe to change, but as you always told us, you know, we're powerless over other people, places and things, and that's something I live by, and that's okay, and I'm fine with that. You know, I journal through it whenever I'm triggered. So
and you're powerful over yourself. I think that's the thing. So and I always remember hearing that, we're powerless over people, places and things. And I'm like, no, if I could just convince them, if I could just explain it better, they'll understand, they'll change. And oh my goodness, it's just exhausting. I mean, people are who they are. I mean, look at us. We sought change, and it was tough. It's a tough journey, isn't it? It's not easy. I would never say to anyone it's an easy journey, because it's not. But we were seeking change. Those that aren't seeking change, they are who they are, and they'll never change. And that's really challenging for women like us who really care and are connected and make excuses, and, you know, and are really sensitive to others.
Absolutely.
And give them a second chance and a 15th chance and a 50th chance, because maybe they'll change. That's the definition of insanity, isn't it?
And speaking of, you know, giving hundreds of chances, I think that's kind of what drained me as well, kind of with people. I used to be such a kind of pushover, and just let myself be treated just how I thought I deserved it, and I didn't know what I deserved. And, you know, through your program, I really just grew so powerful, and that's
check you out. I love that. So powerful. You became an EndoBoss, which is just amazing. So what in particular about the program would you say, like, because obviously, you know, it's a minimum of 12 months, and, you know, how did you find the information? Because it was drip fed every week to you. How did you find that the information, you know, the educational content and things like that? How did you find that?
I remember the first classes, and I remember being so excited every week, because it's kind of drip fed every week, and I was kind of always refreshing the page kind of when the next lesson comes up, and I was so excited to see what I could learn next, and kind of my perfectionist analytical part kind of loved the, you know, the product changes, and I knew exactly, you know, what to do and what to order, and I kind of I still really like that it was drip fed, and kind of it wasn't overwhelming at all, and I think you knew what you were doing kind of with that. And it was so loving. All the information that came, you know, every week, it was so well-meaning and so understandable as well. And even though I was, yeah, I was desperate kind of in the beginning, but I knew I was in the right place from quite an early stage. And yeah, I loved every group call, and I loved meeting other women that I knew would understand me. And yeah, I loved it all. Yeah.
And that you felt safe with, you know, that because there was so many elements you didn't have to explain, and you were all in the program because you all have this, you know, positive driver mindset, and you just didn't have the right, because you can put all your energy into one thing, but if you're not addressing the root causes, then it's just a waste of energy.
Yeah.
You know?
And it was
sorry, no, go on.
it's okay. It just kind of just like a whole new world kind of opened up for me, and it was kind of where what I always looked for, and I always, you know, I always knew that my body was not supposed to be in pain, and that the body should, you know, heal itself. And I knew that something was stopping it. And yeah, coming into your program was just kind of a relief.
Oh, I'm so glad. And it's so interesting hearing you say that you just knew that. And I guess because I recall one of the group calls that we did, and I think I'd said to you, oh, like kind of write down your beliefs, your true beliefs. And I never like to focus on any negative, but it was a bit of a flat kind of, you know, group call. But the following week, I'm like, right, we want to flip it, you know. And then I think was it not about 3 or 4 weeks, and within 3 or 4 weeks, your original beliefs about yourself, which were sad, had flipped unbelievably in a matter of weeks.
That was amazing. And I don't think I would have been able kind of to flip the medal kind of as fast if I hadn't had, you know, other women with me on my journey, and of course you and Maxine kind of always cheering us on. I think that's I knew I needed that.
And I think as well, being in a group, it's so nice when you can hear, and not every woman is confident enough to come onto the group or do Facebook, which is fine too, but there's something really nice hearing other people, because you go, oh, why would you think that about yourself? You're so nice. And then you go, oh, I think that about myself. Do you know what I mean? And then you kind of, and that allows for change too. I think if you're birds of a feather flock together, and having that sense of you're not alone and it's not just you is really powerful.
And just kind of knowing that, you know, if I have a flare day or a bad day, I just knew I had, you know, you cheering me on in the background and other women cheering me on, and it was so new to me, but so lovely
and so needed, isn't it? Because as women, again, we're taught just to put up and shut up and just keep going. And knowing, I think what you really learned so early on was, you know, life's like a river. It's constantly moving. You're going to have your ups and downs, and that you ended up being able to kind of tune into your parts to support yourself. And coming into this environment, it's almost like coming into a real safe compound, you know, wrapped in cotton wool and lots of love, to allow you to tune into yourself and love yourself, you know, and hear your body and understand, because again, we're shaking off a lot of old conditioning that has been put upon us that we didn't even know we had, and that we didn't know was okay to question, and then we didn't know it was okay to change.
Exactly. Your program just, you know, said, you know, we deserve to, you know, be here, and we're all fine as we are, we're okay as we are, and that's just, it's a very unique program.
Oh, it gives me goosebumps, especially for you, because at 21 to be doing this, have that drive and determination. Oh my goodness, like, and so, you know, so where are you at with your body now? Because I know that your body's still got a bit of catching up to do, which is completely normal at this point, but compared to when you went back to read your journals, how good is your body now?
I feel I have a real relationship with my body. I have a dialogue with my body, which may seem a bit, you know, far-fetched for people that, you know, maybe are still at the beginning, but that's fine. And I still have some catching up to do, and I know that, you know, anytime my body shows up with any symptom or any pain, I just know we talk about the 5 Ps, and, you know, to always consider those. And I used to get really triggered and really worried and freaked out, you know, about anything that would show up. And yeah, and that's just totally changed. And I can kind of speak to myself and calm myself down, and I have my parts, you know, that
Yeah.
speak. And what really helped me was when we kind of drew pictures of our parts, and I have those, you know, to speak with me. So,
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
How was that? Because I mean, obviously, for anyone listening, you know, what we mean by parts is, you know, we're not just, somebody had said to me recently, oh, you've got such a child part. And I think they meant it derogatory.
yeah,
And I said, oh, or something like, oh, I can't remember the exact words, it doesn't matter. But I said, I asked her to repeat it just to be clear that I'd heard her right, because I knew she
yeah,
was catty. But I was just like, yes, it's a part of me. It's not all of me. It's a part of me. And I've learned how to play. I've learned how to have fun. I've
yeah,
learned, now those parts were dead and buried, like
yeah,
since I left 5 years old and went to school.
yeah,
But I also have my business part. I have my parent part. I have my,
yeah,
you know, I have all these other parts within me. And I think early on in my journey, you know, if I did get overwhelmed or something, I'd go, it's just a part of me. It's not all of me,
yeah,
a
yeah,
part of me. And it allowed me to listen in a different way as an observer and go, that's interesting. I wonder what triggered that part.
yeah.
I wonder what that feeling of anxiety is coming from. Who was I just around, or what was I just doing? And
Yeah.
that's what we mean about parts. So how did you find that concept?
Yeah, I remember, I don't think you introduced the parts till a few weeks on, because we start, you know, kind of with the basics. And I remember when you kind of started introducing them, I thought, you know, how am I ever going to kind of keep track and find out all of my different parts? But little by little, I got to know my child part, which I'd completely neglected. I created my parent part for myself. I kind of also kind of had a inner mum for myself as well, which was
Yeah,
really, really
nice.
important to me as well.
Yeah.
Um,
And your
yeah,
adolescent part as
yeah,
well, because
yeah,
that part's got a lot of energy and
yeah,
just very neglected and misunderstood. And
yeah,
your drawings were so beautiful.
yeah, thank you. And I think what the part that I had never kind of also gotten in touch with was maybe my teenage part as well, because I thought, you know, that's just past kind of, and of course my perfectionist part as well. And I love that kind of, that wasn't just kind of marked as negative, so but it was part of
Exactly.
all the other parts, and it would just needed to, you know, be a bit more in balance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's so interesting that you say that, because I think there's a lot of new age psychobabble out there that
yeah,
came from the sort of 70s and 80s and 90s about, oh, death to your critic, and
yeah,
you're perfectionist, and you're like, what? But that's a part of me. And
yeah,
and I arrived at the conclusion, which is what I teach, that these strong driver, pusher, perfectionist, people pleasing parts, so they're the
yeah,
main four,
yeah,
became strong for protection,
yeah,
to protect
yeah,
you. So we were like, no, thank you, critic, for trying
yeah,
to protect me, and thank you, perfectionist, for trying to make everything so perfect that I don't get
yeah,
into trouble or don't upset anyone, and
yeah,
thank you, people pleasers, so trying to keep everybody happy, because that's all they knew with the information that they had.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's why we allow these other, we connect with these other parts of us,
yeah,
you know, and then, as you say, we keep these other parts in balance. So it's lovely watching that emerge with you. I've really
yeah,
felt like a duck to water with
yeah,
that.
yeah. And it's completely changed the way that I talk to myself, because I remember speaking very, very, yeah, not very nice to myself. Kind of, I had a very down-putting kind of self-dialogue with me, and
Mm.
kind of seeing all those parts just allowed me, you know, to balance them all out and kind of listen to them all for the first time in my life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and just to get that different perspective, because once
yeah,
we can observe a part of us, and I remember the relief thinking, oh, it's not all of me is a failure. You know,
yeah,
it's part of me that is kind of thinking, oh, I wish I'd done that better. You
yeah,
know, or I'm feeling a bit disappointed, or my perfectionist is going, what's
yeah,
happened? And I'm going, it's okay, it's just a part of me. And then
yeah,
these other parts would come and kind of self-soothe. And I love that concept myself. And it was lovely
yeah,
to watch you kind of really embrace that concept and
yeah,
play with the ideas, which is why I don't necessarily give you all specific names to your parts, because I want you to arrive at your own name that works for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that was lovely. Yeah.
Play with that. And what was it like having your personal coaching calls with the lovely Maxine?
Oh, it was lovely. It kind of kept me going when I thought I couldn't, you know.
Yeah.
And she was so kind and so lovely, and really, yeah, I had some hard times. I ended a relationship during the program, and she was there for me. And even if I, wrote in later when I was triggered, she replied. And which are the most heart-filled, messages to get. So that was really lovely. And she reminded me, that I have my tools, and how to deal with triggers, and just having that every week was really lovely. And I remember I was in counseling at the time, and it wasn't very good, kind of the way I was counseled at the time, and she helped me kind of figure it all out. And she was a good kind of, when I transferred to another counselor, she was always there, and she always had my back, and that was really lovely. And I had calls when I, was in tears with her, and she listened to me. And it's really unique, and never had something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear. I mean, I refer to it, and I'm going to be doing an EndoBoss certification coach training soon.
Yeah.
But I refer to it as coaching. So it's coaching and listening, because how few people feel heard. And actually the whole strength of what I do is to enable you to find your own way. And if you have someone who is genuinely reflecting back what they're hearing, what you're saying, not only do you feel heard, but you go, oh, I think I have an answer to that, or I think I have a solution to that, or oh, I could maybe try that. So you build up, rather than feeling, I know on my journey, I was like, what should I do? What should I do? Which actually made me feel weaker, because I felt more vulnerable, and that person didn't actually know me, or, so why was I doing what they said I should do? Whereas when I started to listen to myself, obviously, there's a time to take advice and go, okay, I might take a bit of that and take a bit this and take something else. But to actually truly listen, and you already had a very strong, a wise part and intuition. It was our role is to help you strengthen that.
And I remember kind of she was always very kind of reflecting back to me, and kind of she was very empowering. And I learned how to use my voice with her, and kind of it was never telling me what to do, or what she thought was good for me, because I knew myself what was good for me. But she kind of helped me realize how to find that out about myself. And that's kind of, I've never had that with any counselor before.
So to help you step into what was already there, it just needed the right, because I think to step into her, like you said, like, we thought that was weakness somehow. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you're around toxic people, they project it backside forwards. It's like, if you dare have an opinion, whatever, they buffalo you down, like, don't you dare, it's you is the problem. You're like, what? Just like, I'm allowed to have my own thoughts and feelings. And I think that's what you really, what we really noticed was you stepping into your power and being really comfortable with that. Obviously you had the wobbles, and that's fine too, and you had the worries, and it was navigating that growth, throughout the program, which you already had that there, but we're just fighting all the different narratives that are external to really come back into the internal of what you know to be true about yourself.
And it was essentially just, we, all the women, we just gain the power that, we always had, but we never knew we had it and how to use it. And that was, lovely.
Which is why you're referred to as EndoBosses.
Yes.
Because it was so lovely to meet you, to give you your medal and everything as well.
Yeah, it was lovely.
So what would you say, as we're finishing up here, what would you say to any woman who is lying at home in bed with a hot water bottle and feeling lost, down in the dumps, hopeless? What would you say to her?
Oh, just please know that there's another way. It's just, yeah, I wish I'd known it, you know, even earlier than I have already, but there is another way, and you know your body best. And that's just, it's a fact. And I've run to doctor after doctor, and yeah, I always had that inner wisdom kind of, and there is another way. And yeah, use to kind of just to use this as your first hope, not your last, because yeah, it's very, very empowering.
Oh, give me goosebumps again. Well, look, thank you so much. We're going to chat again in a minute, and I'm going to press pause and we'll chat after. But I just genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I remember our first call. I remember where you were and how down and how desperate you were. I admired your determination, your spirit, your drive. And to see you now, you look so radiant and glowing, and your energy and your aura, if you believe in such things, you know, it's so lovely to see that, you know, you're on the right path for you. You have this relationship with your body. You can tune into your emotions and go, that's interesting. You have the tools in which to support you to do that now, which is like, you're just set for life.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, well, look, thank you so much, Leonie. You've been such a star. I'm an amazing student.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to pause this recording now, and we'll have another chat. So thank you so much.